After a very long night of ballot counting, CNN can now project Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley will be the one to advance to the governor's race as after he secured the Democratic nomination for governor.
The far left has just suffered a brutal and surprising defeat, and I find it absolutely delicious. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, your home for independent and nonpartisan commentary and analysis on politics, media, internet insanity, and more. Guys, we're going to check in with Wisconsin, the latest stronghold, but just kidding, actually not, of the insurgent far-left DSA, or Democratic Socialists of America, movement, because their candidate, who of course all these far-left types, including Hassan Piker, backed and campaigned for, just lost the gubernatorial nomination race within the Democratic Party, the primary election, after being an overwhelming favorite to run away with it. And this is, of course, Francesca Hong, who is like the most extreme and absurdist example of all of these leftist candidates. Well, people thought she was going to win and be the Democratic Party's nominee to be governor in the general election in November, yet she actually lost to David Crowley. Anyway, here is from 4 a.m. last night, because it kind of went down to the wire, the election being called live on CNN.
Hi, everybody, 4 a.m. here in New York, 3 a.m. in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And after a very long night of ballot counting, CNN can now project Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley will be the one to advance to the governor's race as after he secured the Democratic nomination for governor. He had been locked in a very tight race with State Assembly member Francesca Hong. Crowley had dropped out of the race in early June, but then re-entered just days later with support of Wisconsin's outgoing governor. Well, later this year, he's set to face Republican Congressman Tom Tiffany, who does have the endorsement of President Donald Trump.
Yeah, so now that will actually be a competitive election, and I'm not quite sure which way the general will go, because Wisconsin is a somewhat purpley-ish state. But if it had been Francesca Hong, then even with the wind at the back of Democrats, very much so in a midterm election, as it always is, but particularly with Trump's unpopularity at the moment, yeah, it really would have been with Francesca Hong as the nominee. People would have actually backed the Republican nominee to have a real shot at still winning despite all the headwinds. But with this more normal guy, all in comparison, of course, everything's relative. When we're talking about this kind of thing, David Crowley, the Democrats will have a stronger, I think, chance of winning the governor's mansion. But we should just talk about this because I was like pleasantly surprised to wake up this morning. I'm sorry, I did not, in fact, wait up last night watching the election results roll in until 4 a.m. But I was pleasantly surprised to see like maybe a little bit of sanity prevail. Because remember, Francesca Hong is the candidate who like hated Thanksgiving and talked about how her son's whiteness made her uncomfortable because she has a half-white son. She was all aboard the defund and abolish the police train and prisons and all of this stuff, and really on board with a lot of the most cartoonishly woke and radical left-wing positions. And she tried to walk back some of it, but it was so obviously inauthentic, and she was just so incredibly bad on camera and in some of these interviews that of all these DSA leftist types, she was like the weakest candidate. Yet according to the polling, she looked like she was going to win this, and the prediction markets had her as the overwhelming favorite as well. But no, maybe things shifted on the ground in these primary races. There are actually not that many people that vote in them, so even a small shift in sentiment or one story or one scandal can change things a lot. But listen, I find it heartening that maybe, just maybe, even Democratic primary voters are not that far gone, at least in Wisconsin, to be electing and voting for Hassan Piker's favorite bestie, really. I mean, that alone should tell you what kind of a crazy radical person this was. But the memes have been incredible. Since the election result came in and she lost in such glorious fashion, though ultimately very narrowly, and in a sane world, that wouldn't even be the case. So even that, I mean, is something of a signal that there is genuine energy behind this DSA leftist insurgent flank. But I want to just read you a couple tweets I found hilarious. So a more moderate Democratic commentator and former staffer wrote, as the news broke, that VoteHub projects David Crowley to win the Democratic primary. She wrote, "And this Thanksgiving, as we gather around the table within reasonable proximity to whiteness, let us be thankful." I mean, really, it is just like cartoonish that this woman actually railed against Thanksgiving and said that it was a side of indigenous folks. Again, she tried to walk this back, but it was so unbelievable. We covered this on the show. She tried to do an interview and she was like, "I actually love Thanksgiving. I'm a chef." And it just, no one believes her. But she was out here tweeting just a few years ago that she hated Thanksgiving. She wanted to abolish Thanksgiving. And she literally made the word folks, Folks, which is not a gendered term. She wrote it as folks with an X to make what was already not a gendered term gender neutral. This person was like the ChatGPT create a caricature of the most insufferable woke radical person you've ever met in your life. And she was like this close to potentially becoming the nominee, who would then have a very good chance of becoming the governor of Wisconsin. That's still kind of scary, but the jokes about Thanksgiving I do find hilarious. Anyway, my friend Billy Binion, who's a reporter at Reason Magazine, tweeted, "I just searched Francesca Hong to get an update on the election results, and this is what came up." And it's a random tweet from her official account from August 11th, 2020, where she just tweeted with no context, "I'm glad I didn't shave my legs today." What? Now, obviously, I don't particularly care whether or not women shave their legs or not, but there's just something about that is kind of a funny microcosm of the unseriousness of this person, that she was just a few years ago, when I believe she was already in public life, though I'm not sure about that one, just randomly tweeting stuff like this. And then the layer as well is that she didn't delete these posts. She didn't take them down. She just left all this cringe stuff up, even if she was running for governor. That's also not the best sign, actually, that we were dealing with a serious or competent person. Now, I do have to say that David Crowley, the guy who got the nomination, is also kind of cringe. He did two things that I've seen that I don't like. One, he said that he implied that it was like racist to say he was the establishment candidate because he's black. And it's like, that's ridiculous identity woke nonsense. Obviously, when the establishment Democrats are endorsing you against an insurgent candidate, you then become the establishment candidate, and that's not some sort of coded racial slur. That's ridiculous. And then he's also just announced after winning that he's going to be doing like a unity tour with Francesca, which I also don't like. I mean, I do sort of understand that he needs the people who supported her to come out and vote for him in November, but it's like she's such a crazy radical extremist that you could thank her for a good race and just leave it at that, and then never be seen with her in public again. That's what I would do, at least. Anyway, there was some interesting infighting on the left that I want to discuss as Francesca's glorious demise, electoral demise, came through, which is that left-wing writers started attacking like other progressive icons for not supporting her hard enough. So here's the socialist writer Nathan J. Robinson. He wrote on X in a tweet that has nearly 1 million views, quote, "Totally inexcusable that Bernie and AOC failed to back Hong. If she loses narrowly, it will be a major setback for the socialist movement that they will bear major responsibility for." Now, I think this is interesting, actually, because both Bernie and AOC did essentially take a pass on her, and just when they were asked, didn't endorse her. They didn't go there to campaign for her. And those two, especially among like Democratic primary voters, are very popular. And she is in the same ideological camp as them. She's a Democratic Socialist. She's a member of the DSA. So is AOC. Bernie Sanders, I don't think he's a member of DSA, but he calls himself a Democratic Socialist. And that's clearly kind of his ideological lineage. And yet they didn't support her. Now, on one hand, that's because they have a little bit of common sense and a little bit of self-preservation. And they didn't want to put their name on the line for somebody that was such a deeply flawed and awful candidate. And on one hand, I can respect that. But on the other hand, as much as we're looking at it differently, Nathan Robinson is saying this like it is a bad thing. He's saying Bernie and AOC abandoned her and it set back the socialist movement, and that's awful. I'm like, they abandoned her and it set back the socialist movement, and I think that's awesome. But I think he's correct. In such a narrow race where the final margin will be like 1% or something like that, if they had gone and campaigned for her and stumped for her, that's a very real possibility that could swing the election right there, because they are two huge names. They're two super popular figures with the primary voting base, and they would have definitely led to a surge in donations and attention, at least for her candidacy. And she's more or less aligned with them. So I kind of don't understand why they didn't support her, other than wanting to protect themselves, which makes a little more sense for AOC politically than it does for Bernie, because it's like, I don't really understand what he has to lose. He's not going to run for president again. He's probably not going to run for Senate again. Like, he's ancient at this point. And so what does it really matter? With AOC, I do kind of understand that she is clearly angling towards a bigger and higher ambitions in 2028, either maybe the New York Senate seat or possibly a presidential run, or trying to secure a nomination as vice president. Either way, I mean, it makes a little more sense for her to be cautious and not want to associate herself with such a absurd person. She doesn't want to be tied to the abolish Thanksgiving movement. Sorry, how is that a real sentence? How is that a real sentence I just actually said? And it's only partially meant in jest, and it's sort of actually not that far off of reality. That is hilarious. But like I said, I can understand politically a little bit more why AOC would take a pass on this one. But with Bernie, I don't really get it, especially because he's personally met her, and he just was very standoffish about it when asked about it in interviews. He was just like, nah, I'm good. I'm not going to support her. Anyway, it was pretty wild, but it is interesting to see somebody like Nathan Robinson call them out for it, and that this might lead to some serious infighting and finger pointing among left-wing people, which is kind of what they're known for. They're very good at like the circular firing squad. So I maybe that bodes well for those of us who want to see the rising Democratic Socialists of America movement crumble and fail. Because it's so, I mean, again, this is an organization that wants to abolish the Constitution and do away with the entire American system of government, have the government take control of the economy, have open borders, abolish prisons, abolish police, all this like utter insane lunacy and nonsense. I do want to see their movement implode. So as far as I'm concerned, this is certainly nothing of the sort in terms of endorsing this other guy, David Crowley, but I'm happy to see Francesca Hong's campaign go down in flames. I'm happy if this has leftists fighting among each other, and hopefully this is a sign that maybe at the statewide level, rather than just one single deep blue district, even Democratic primary voters aren't this far gone, at least not yet. There's your hope core for the day. There's me trying to find the bright side for you guys, but you will have to let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We got more coming. We're going to react to Hassan Piker's delicious tears about this election result later today, so stay tuned for that video. Hit the like button, make sure you're subscribed, and do consider becoming a channel member as well to support my work, to support my centrist, independent approach to political commentary. I don't just pander to the left or the right. I try to actually call balls and strikes and just give you an honest opinion regardless of party politics. So I do need support from viewers like you. Hit the join button or click the link in the description. With that, guys, we'll leave it there for now and be back with more real soon.